The Last of Us Season 2 finally went dark. Or did it? Welcome back to Movies Good Internet Bad. I'm Corey, that's Shane. We're breaking down the 5th episode of Season 2 here. And spoilers ahead for both the game and the show because hard to talk about it any other way. So Shane, let's react to this, man. How did you feel about this episode?
Yeah, I'm still a little bit conflicted about the way they're approaching the Ellie character.
Yeah.
And to just put this right off the bat, I do not think this is a Bella Ramsey problem. I think
No.
this
No,
is
no, no.
a show writing problem.
Yes.
Um, in the game, Ellie is very much the driver of this revenge quest to kill Abby.
Yeah.
And in the show, it seems like she doesn't even really want to be there. She has to be convinced continually throughout not just this episode but beforehand
Yeah.
to go through with it. She's making jokes, she's lighthearted about it, and it just feels very weird. It feels like Dina is the one taking the death much more personally than Ellie is. And I don't think that works. We finally get to the big moment with Nora in the very end of this, and we see the transition of Ellie into this monster, but I don't know if it's earned in the same way because of the whiplash, right?
Well, there's two sides to that. So I don't think it's as earned because of how the character has been portrayed so far this season. But then
Correct.
when the act happens, it's nowhere near as brutal as it is in the game.
Correct.
And it doesn't have the same weight to it, I guess, is
Mm-hmm.
probably the way. Like, yes, Bella flips on a switch and the Ellie character is much more angry and intimidating and all of those things. And yes, what Ellie does to Nora is not nice, obviously. But it didn't have the same oomph that scene had in the game. And when we saw the trailers, like way back, right, we were like, oh man, I know what that red light means. Shit's gonna go down. And then
Yeah.
I mean, shit went down, but like not 100% the way that I thought.
Yeah, they approached it. There were things I liked about the way they did it, and things I really didn't like. Talking about the Nora scene specifically,
Yeah.
the things that I liked the most was we had a little callback to the Abby scene where Ellie turns around and looks, and she finds the pipe. It's very similar to how Abby turned around and found the golf clubs, like direct parallel between the two, which that makes sense, right? The whole point of this storyline is the parallel between the two characters.
Yep.
What I didn't like, though, is she gets down there and it's like an exposition off between Nora and her. It's like Nora's like on her dying breath, and she's like, "Didn't you know that that's Abby's dad, and we're the only person that can save you with the vaccine?" It's like, what are we doing? Why would she be talking?
I'm sorry, I'm still laughing. It's just the idea of like, I can fill in the blanks better than you can. No, I can. Then that's kind of what happened in that.
That to me did not make sense in that moment to have an expositional dialogue. They also reveal that Ellie already knows what Joel did, which is a big reveal. For show watchers, this is the first time that they have been introduced to this concept. In the game, it's a little bit different how that's introduced. And I don't love that change either. I did love the one line from Ellie, though, where she's like, "You killed the both of us." And she's like, "Did I?" It's like, "Call the ambulance, but not for me."
Not for me. Yeah. I feel like a lot of that writing was purposefully there to tee up a flashback episode, which will absolutely be happening next week.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
But at that point, it's I don't know, man. It's almost like if you're going to do the flashback thing, just do it and surprise people. You don't have to do this post-credit scene-ish
I did
thing
not
where it's
like that.
Oh, hey, look, it's Pedro Pascal again.
Pedro Pascal.
Yay!
Yeah. It's like they had to fill quota on how many episodes he had to be in this season. Like, throw him in this one. Make sure he gets paid for it.
Yeah, because then that way it's episodes 1, 2, 5, and then presumably 6. Right?
Yeah. And maybe 7 if they throw in more flashbacks in 7 as well.
We could have a crawl, and it could say somehow Pedro returned as it's going up. The dead speak, as they say.
Yes.
In Fortnite,
the dead breathed in this episode. They didn't speak, but they breathed.
That is a terrific segue, and we're kind of ragging on the show a little bit today. I thought all the production design and the sets and everything for the
Mhm.
spore stuff was absolutely fantastic. That
Yep.
was real good.
The spores were great, and like the like breathing out the spores
Hmm.
was great because I don't think we see that in the game. Maybe at some point we do, but the spores for people who have not played the game are in all of the games. They were introduced for the first time in this show, but in the game they were present throughout the entire
Right,
show.
from the
You
demo.
had to, whenever you went into infected areas, people had to put on the gas masks,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
I'm assuming they did not do that in the show because then you're covering up the actors' faces. And obviously, you want to be able to see Pedro Pascal's face
Do
in a
you?
show where you're casting, unless
Is
you are
is
Star Wars.
is there a show where that happens,
I
Shane?
didn't even know I was going
Tell me.
I
Is
walked
there a show
directly into that.
that has had 3 seasons and will have a movie soon that stars Pedro Pascal where you don't see his face? Please.
I did not. Oh my gosh.
What is John Favreau's email address? I need to talk to him about this shit. That's a whole
Oh,
nother
that's
conversation.
very funny.
Subscribe for our Andor reviews, by the way. Star Wars is dead this week, and we can have a funeral for it. Anyway, so the spores, yes, to your point, when the humans are breathing them out, I thought it was really neat because they made it look really pretty, and
Yeah.
it's something that's like really awful and like kind of like a monster of its own design, and the way that they animated it made it look really cool, which I thought was
I think
an
what's
interesting
good,
choice.
what's kind of cool about this show, though, in general, and the franchise in general, is that it's never really treated like the infection is an evil. It's just as it is.
Hmm.
It's just an infection, like it's a virus. It's just surviving, like
Right.
any people would, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you get some of those moments where it's kind of pretty,
Hmm.
even though it's this horrible thing that's killed a bunch of people.
Yeah. And humanizing that element by having it be the one member of the WLF's son who's
Yes.
down there, and
Yeah.
it's an aged version of that person, but still sort of alive because of the spores
Right.
and all that. I thought that was pretty well done. I was a little
Mhm.
concerned when they started right with that flashback scene where they're kind of explaining that something's wrong in the basement. I was like,
Yes.
where are we going here?
we
Other
we get a
than
line there where one of the characters is like, "My job is to protect," and she's like, "Whoa, whoa! I know what your job is. I know your orders." I'm like,
yeah,
why did we write that?
yeah. There was some stuff in this episode that, and we've alluded to it before, where it kind of feels like they're hitting the audience over the head
The
with.
Seraphites thing. It's like the Amish people. Do you know what the Amish people are? I'm like, oh god, what are
They
we
were from
doing?
Pennsylvania. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah. We didn't need Dina explaining that they're a religious cult because we have seen in 2 prior episodes that they're a religious cult.
Yeah,
So, yeah. And we get a scene later in the episode that describes and shows visually that they're a religious
a
cult.
religious cult.
So, I don't think we needed the scene saying that they're a religious cult. Anyways,
Yeah.
uh,
Um, I don't know. My one final question on the Ellie characterization stuff for you is, we only have 2 episodes left of this season, and one of them is presumably going to be almost, if not entirely, flashback.
mhm.
Where do you go from here to finish things up in a way that makes sense to tell your audience, make sure to tune in for season 3?
Yeah, it's tough because, and maybe that's the way they're approaching it. They're slowly getting Ellie on that rush to madness because
Hmm.
you need to be rooting for her a little bit into
Sure.
season 3. And if you rush that and she's like basically terrible and evil the whole time, then maybe they tune out before season 3.
Mm.
So maybe, and this is where I think like they're kind of afraid of the audience. They're writing scared. They're
Right.
writing like, please, please stick with us. We're gonna make Ellie cute and likable.
Hmm.
You know, like she might do some horrible things, but don't worry. The
But she's
very
going to play
next
guitar for you.
episode,
She's going to sing for you, and it's going to be great.
exactly, yeah, and like it. I think for this story to work in the way that it should, she just has to go for it. And I don't mean Bella. I mean the character, how
The
it's
character.
written.
Right.
Uh, she's not very likable in the game, and
No.
that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Is that
But I
she
think
becomes the thing that she is against?
that's where some of the blowback came from with
Yeah,
the fans, right? So
yeah.
it's interesting to see. how they're going to tackle it, especially with essentially one episode of in the current moment of the timeline left for the year. But let's talk about the rest. What else
Yeah.
happened in this episode?
Yeah, so we get the introduction to the spores. We talked about that. One thing they mention, and this is different from the game timeline, but they talk about how the first patients in '03 were moved down there. So
Hmm.
the spores presumably are the super advanced version of this virus that it just keeps progressing. And
Hmm.
now it's at the point where it's in the air. And that would be horrible if that spread, right? Because
What
it
would
could get
happen if a virus was
anywhere.
in the air? What a concept. Anyway,
Yeah. They also mentioned that there weren't even rats down there in the basement, which will not come back at all at any
no,
point
no,
in the
you don't
future.
mention things like that if you don't intend on making something out of it.
Yes, but all game watchers pointed at that. But yeah, so then we get Ellie and Dina in the theater. One thing that I found really weird is she goes to the guitar immediately again, where we
Yeah.
just had that in the prior episode. And
Hmm.
this is where I think compressing timelines can kind of hurt
It's hard.
because,
Yeah.
and first off, I'm glad we got, so she plays the beginning of Future Days, the song that episode one is named after. It
Hmm.
is featured prominently in the game. That's all I'll say. Uh, but it feels weird to have episode four, she has a guitar playing scene. Episode five, she immediately then has another guitar playing scene.
Hmm.
And this is where if you compress it together, those two scenes are too close together. And so they don't
Right.
hit the same way. Whereas
Yeah.
if you stretch it out and give it more time to breathe, then you can have another one later and it
Hmm.
doesn't feel as repetitive.
Yeah. If you're playing the game, you're 5 6 hours
Exactly.
of time in between seeing her play guitar again, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that guitar scene was needed there because of that reason. It felt rushed. It was like we just saw this. I know it's
Yeah.
Future Days, but yeah,
And it was so short that
yeah,
it was like 4 seconds, and then Dina was in saying, "Hey, I found where we have to go." So
yeah. And I think it's there as a character moment to remind her of what she has lost, so
sure,
that she
yeah,
can drive forward. But then that doesn't really work because right after that, when she's talking to Dina, she's like, "Oh, we should go back. We're fine. Like, let's go back. Go back with me." And
right.
it's like, what? What? Why are you doing this? Um, yeah. But then they explain that Dina is this super smart person and Ellie is an idiot, which was also weird. It's a weird way to characterize, and I get it. Like she's meant to be more of like the brute force type of
I,
character.
I do like making Dina like she's worth her medal, like she's
Yeah.
there for a reason instead of just
Yes.
kind of tagging along as a love interest. So,
Agree. Agree.
and I thought that Isabel Merced continues to be very good
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
role, like
She's
her little
great.
monologue about her family and everything. Good stuff.
Yeah. So we're getting to that now. So she gives the monologue about how her family died. She was 8 years old. A raider came and killed her family. And we get a huge departure from what happens in the game, which is Ellie's like, no, let's go ahead and go back. And Dina's like, no, you know, I would hunt down that person just like we're going to hunt down Abby.
Hmm.
And it feels like Dina is the protagonist of the story
A
for a
little bit,
moment there.
yeah, yeah,
Ellie is totally fine to go back, and Dina is the one that pushes onward. And I don't know if that works. I just don't. The whole point of this story is Ellie having that connection with Joel and going on this revenge trip.
hmm,
And if she doesn't seem fully committed to the revenge trip, I don't know if that works.
yeah. That changes a little bit over the course of the episode,
Yeah,
which we'll get into. But at the beginning here, she seemed very willing to just be like, "No, I'll take you back to the theater, and then
we'll
I'll
drop
go.
it.
I'll
Yeah,
go. It'll be okay." It wouldn't be okay. You're one person going into a war between two very sick groups of people.
yeah.
Like,
So she does do that in the game, though. She does go off by herself.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I just felt that part was a little bit weird. That she's not as gung ho about doing the whole thing and doesn't
Sure.
care about the collateral damage. Like
Hmm.
that's her character is she's going to go do this. She doesn't matter where it doesn't matter what happens to anybody else.
Hmm.
But here it's the exact opposite where it's I'm going to go do this but make sure that nothing happens to everybody else and everyone's
Hmm.
safe and it's just not her character. So
Yeah.
weird. But yeah, then they break into this office park and they get attacked by a bunch of stalkers. Call back to the first episode where Ellie
Hmm.
fights the stalker. And we get the little cliche like, oh, I love you because of this, and oh, you said you loved me, and like, we didn't need any of that. Just in general, that if you have that in your show, and I'm not saying that because it's same sex or anything like that, is just that it is a scene that has been done in 80 billion TV shows and movies since the
Right.
history of time, and you just
Yeah.
don't need that.
Yep.
But yeah, then they get attacked by the stalkers, and Jesse comes in to save them. And
Yeah.
Jesse is a badass, and he explains that he and Tommy came to save them because they thought that they were going to get killed. Um, and then they get into the park, and this was actually kind of funny. I thought it was interesting that in the beginning of the episode, they describe that there's this part of the city that the wolves don't go to, and
Hmm.
it's clearly because of infected, but it's
Right.
actually because of the Seraphites, and the
Yep.
Seraphites. And I loved this, the little introduction with the whistles. The whistles are very
Yeah.
terrifying.
It's great.
Loved all that. We get this disemboweling scene
Hmm.
where she's like, or the guy's like, the prophet is, watching over all of us, and now he is free.
Now he's
And
free. And it's like,
yeah,
well, he's
yeah,
dead.
he's dead,
He's
but he's
not
with the
free.
prophet, right? So
Right. Yeah.
then Dina gets hit in the leg with an arrow, and so Jesse and Dina have to go back to the theater, but
Yep.
Ellie persists onward. We also get a cliche, she's hiding under the tree scene thing where they didn't check under the tree there,
Yeah. And then the other group didn't check underneath the little hole in
Yes,
the
it's just
wall.
a critter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ellie's small. We get
yes, yeah.
it.
But then we get to the hospital. So Ellie gets into the hospital and finds Nora. She is trying to find Abby, and Nora explains, "Hey, Joel deserved what he did." And this dialogue is copied, pasted from the
Yep.
game. That I could hear I hear his screams in my dreams, but he deserved to die.
Hmm.
He deserved everything he got, which is probably tough for Ellie to hear. And that's, I think, part of what pushes her on this rage is that, if Nora had sympathized with her a little bit, she probably wouldn't have done what she did.
Yeah. She even
But
says to her,
because,
if you give me the info, I might even let you go.
yeah,
But then of course,
but
Nora just doesn't go for it.
yep. But then they find themselves in the basement, and Nora obviously is not immune to the spores and succumbs to the spores. We get the spore scene we talked about,
Yeah.
and Ellie goes in and beats Nora with a pipe to get the information out of her. And then we get an inexplicable flashback teaser. Just such a weird placement of that. The
Yeah.
only reason you would do that is, hey, tune in next week for more Pedro Pascal,
Right. The
which again feels stupid. This feels like a studio note.
Yeah. There was a long enough cut to black and silence after she hits her with the pipe the third time where I thought, okay, they're going to roll
Credits.
credits
Yep.
on go the sicko route and
And I
leave
think
us
that's a
there.
fine cutting, like jumping off point. I think that's a
Right.
fine way to end the episode.
Yeah.
But maybe they just needed something happy to
That's not what
wash
this
out.
story is really about,
It's
though.
true, it's not.
It's
And
not.
that's what
It's
I'm
not about
saying.
that.
It's
Yeah.
missing the point, Corey.
I do love Jesse. I love
Hmm.
young Mazzino's character, or the way he's portraying the character. I think he's
Yep.
fantastic. I also loved how when he first showed up, they shot him with an extremely harsh light behind him, and his silhouette kind of looked like Joel
Like Joel.
for a
Yeah.
minute. And
Yeah.
it's like, and Ellie sees that and is like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god!" And then it just turns out to be Jesse. I
Yeah.
actually thought that
Yeah.
was pretty good.
I thought it
Um,
was going to be Tommy.
I thought so
I
too.
thought they would make that change. Obviously, it's Jesse in the game, but I thought they would make a change and it would be Tommy because it's almost like it's Joel, right?
Yeah,
It's his brother instead of him. I don't know, but
yep. But they set up like the interesting love triangle stuff where it's like,
mhm.
well, Ellie, you couldn't protect Dina, but Jesse's been following you guys, and he certainly could. So, you know, where does the what side of the bed does Dina lay on? I guess
Yeah,
is where we're going with here.
yes, and it also feels a little strange that and I get that this is show versus game
Sure.
stuff.
Yep.
Uh, Dina and Ellie feel useless at combat in the show. In the game, obviously, you are mowing down hundreds of
You have
infected
to.
throughout the
Yeah.
entire game. So I guess making them a little bit more vulnerable is more of like a show tension thing,
Hmm.
but it is a little bit weird comparing the two, right?
Yeah. It's almost like you have to do that.
Yeah.
for the sake of the show.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so that's it.
that's the
Anything
episode.
else?
No, we'll see where if it's this kind of sticks the landing. It's just it's taken too long for that turn for Ellie for me, so we'll have
Yeah.
to see.
Well, and especially now because we're probably going to have a week away from that version of her because we're
What
going
is
to
with
go to
shows
flashbacks
doing these like these removed episodes, one episode before finales
right before the
nowadays?
finale.
Like
I don't
right
get it.
before you have to have this episode that has no correlation to the I mean, it will have story implications, but like it's weird that every show seems to pause the narrative right before the finale, have a little like bottle episode, and then go into the finale. I
Yeah,
don't know why.
I don't know, man. If I were doing it, it would be smack dab in the middle of the season and
Yeah,
just split it down the middle, and then give yourself 2-3 episodes uh, to do that, or uh, you know, do it like Andor did in the first arc of season one, where it's just cross cut for the
yeah.
entire 3 episodes.
Which that's how the game works too, is all the
Yeah, right,
cross cuts. It's
right,
not done how this is. So
yeah.
interesting. I don't
But
know.
next week's is it's directed by Neil himself. So
Written
it
by
will.
Neil too, which is interesting
Oh,
because
okay. Yeah,
Craig has written everything up until
every
this
episode so
point.
far. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what's different. But you'll just have to subscribe to this channel and stick around to see how we feel about it next week and the week after. But in all seriousness, we did pass 500 subscribers this week, and that is extremely humbling. And just thank you to everyone who has tagged along for the ride here. We're not stopping anytime soon. Tell your friends; it's going to be great. If you haven't subscribed already, please do like the video if you liked it. We're covering Andor. The finale, sadly, is this week. We also have 2 more weeks of The Last of Us, and then we're heading right into summer movie season. So we got Mission Impossible, Jurassic World, Fantastic Four. 28 years later, the whole bunch. We're going to cover them all. So make sure to stay tuned for all of those and so much more. Until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.